A monster has just descended on your adventuring party, and your dungeon master has just told you to roll for initiative. It's your turn, but what exactly can you do? Let's discuss combat actions on today's episode of Handbooker Helper.
Don't know how to play? We'll show you the way. Handbooker Helper. Handbooker Helper.
Each round of combat grants you an action, a bonus action, a move action, and a reaction that can be triggered under certain circumstances. For this episode, however, we're going to focus on what you can do with that main action. Remember, there really is no limit to what you can do. This is Dungeons & Dragons after all, but these are the most common actions that every character has in their arsenal. First up is the attack action. Pretty self-explanatory. This is when you attack using your melee or ranged weapon, or your fists, if you're really hardcore. Roll a d20, add any modifiers, and keep your fingers crossed that your attack exceeds or meets the creature's AC to land that hit. Some classes grant you an extra attack with the attack action, like fighters or monks, which allows you to attack twice in one round. Next up is casting a spell. Now, not all spells are created equal, and not all spells can be cast as an action. Some can be cast as bonus actions, reactions, and some require hours to cast and therefore shouldn't be used in combat. But most of your spells have a casting time of one action, which means that fireball is good to go. Now, let's get into the nifty stuff. Are you a melee fighter who's too far away from the enemy? You can use a dash as an action, which gives you extra movement equal to your base speed. For example, if your base speed is 30 feet, dashing means you get 60 feet of total movement. Whoosh. Got an enemy in your face whose proximity is making you uncomfortable? Use the Disengage action to remove any attacks of opportunity that would occur when you use your movement to get the hell out of dodge. Speaking of dodge, you can do that too if you feel like sticking around. Taking the dodge action means that you're completely focused on avoiding attacks. If an enemy that you can see attacks you, then that attack is made with disadvantage. You also have advantage on any dexterity saving throws to try and avoid that fireball that is now being hurled in your general direction. Moving on to my favorite, the hide action. Sorry, this requires a stealth check, and if you succeed, you've hidden yourself from the attackers who will now have to make a perception check to attempt to find you. Oh, say you want to wait for something specific to happen in order to line up the perfect assault, like waiting for your druid to land that fairy fire spell. This requires taking the ready action. Decide what you're waiting on and what your action will be once that circumstance has been triggered. A word of caution to spellcasters. If it comes back to your turn after a full round and you didn't release the spell you've readied, then it fades and you've lost that spell slot, so ready spells wisely. You can also be altruistic and use the help action. This means that any creature you aid gains advantage on the attack or task they're trying to attempt. How nice of you. What if you're locked in a room with a rampaging owlbear and you need to search for a hidden lever that might open the shuttered gate to freedom? You can search as an action, which will usually require making a perception or investigation check. Finally, there's the use an object action. This is for when you have a complex object that requires your full action to use, like, maybe if that lever is stuck and you have to use all of your strength to tug it down. Those are the most common combat actions. Don't feel that you have to remain locked into only these 10 options, and as always, your DM's word is law. Go with what feels right for your character, and the DM will help you figure out exactly what action is required to make it happen. Go forth, adventurers, and may your only limits be that -2 to wisdom. I don't know what this is.
Handbooker Helper. Handbooker Helper.